Season 2, Episode 11. Black-owned theme trips that you need to take in 2018.
Hey! Tinashe, DJ Cassidy, drop that beat. What you gonna do when you get
Expect more and pay less at Target. This episode of the Keep It 100 Girl podcast is brought to you by Target, because they're offering sweet deals this week. Target is launching presidential size savings on home items, clothing, and a whole lot more. Don't miss out. It's 20% off kids' clothing starting February 16th through the 19th. 20% off men's and women's C9 clothing, and you got to use this promo code to get the deal. It's PRESDAY20, PRESDAY 20. Again, February 16th through the 19th. Then we have 30% off home items, and you know what? You get a 15% off extra with rugs using the promo code George. So if you're trying to lay that rug in the foyer, kitchen, living room, get it on February 11th through to the 17th. And if you kicked off 2018 with juicing, blending, and smoothies, well, all Ninja products are up to 25% off. Again, 2/11 through 2/17. Check this deal out on keepit100girl.com, episode number 11. Or you could just tap the podcast icon on your mobile to access the show notes to get that Target shopping link and shop from there.
bounce to the beat one time, bounce to the beat two times, and we out.
Welcome to the Keep It 100 Girl podcast. This is a show where I share 50 shades of cray-cray and lessons learned so we could all be better at keeping it 100 in 2018. Every week, I am unapologetically myself. You're unapologetically yourselves too. No filters, judgment, or any boundaries, right? It's what keeping 100 is all about, right? You're keeping it real. You keep it true. It's raw. It's grown. We women and men tell the truth, nothing but the truth, even if it's totally embarrassing or super cray-cray. And I'm your host, Nina Babel. And are you ready to keep it 100? Are you ready to keep it real and true?
Yes, I'm ready to keep it 100.
I'm ready to keep it 100, girl.
You know I'm going to keep it 100.
It's time to do something different in 2018. First-hand experiences that are more than a vacation. So you're probably thinking, what does travel and keep it 100 have to do with each other? Well, remember, I celebrate embarrassment. And believe it or not, there's some of you listening right now out there who have never left your mother country. And let's just keep it real. You've never left the U.S. or you don't own a passport. And there's a whole lot of travel communities out there that have really either spun up, grown in the last 5 years due to some kind of movement. And each has its own theme. Collectively, when you look at all the populations of each of these travel communities and you add them all up, they only really represent a sliver of the U.S. population, people. This year marks the times when supporting Black-owned businesses domestically has been taken to greater heights, even beyond our borders, because there are so many other businesses to support internationally. Below is a list of unique getaways that you can easily cross off your bucket list. And if you don't have a bucket list, oh, let me tell you something. You need to make one. And you need to start with, and I'm not joking, at least 10 items for 2018. Otherwise, you are not living authentically and you're not living with a purpose. I hate to tell you this, but it's true. You know, I always refer to vacations as like some It's a reset. It's a refresh. It's a renewal. You come back a different person. So I thought it would be fitting to kick off this conversation by talking about those spiritual related vacations. And don't press stop or pause or fast forward. Hear me out. When I say spiritual, I don't mean church. This time, not necessarily. It's more of an ancestral calling kind of feeling. And so I'm going to give you some ideas. And I feel like as Black people, some of us know our ancestors, some of us don't. So it's time to get acquainted, even if it's just from a historical point of view. And I think out of all my travels to date, Brazil definitely struck a chord with me. And for those of you who don't know, Brazil has the second largest Black population outside of Africa. Salvador de Bahia, this is a must for Black travelers. Bahia's culture is filled with tons of West African influences. And there's nothing in this world when you're on vacation is seeing hundreds of beautiful Black melanated people. Like, I'm talking to the nth level. Whether we're in the restaurant, the beach, we're just together. And the food is a great fusion of African and Portuguese. And the music, the sounds will just resonate to your core. You know, from samba to the drums to just Yoruba. It will just put you in touch. Like I call it a deep-rooted vibe that's just ready to be unleashed. And it's that whole, I'm telling you, it brings you back to that whole ancestral calling. And I'm going to give you a positive and a negative because, you know, everything is not on the surface either. You know, Black people don't live a privileged life in Brazil, right? And so you're going to find that, you know, living in America, you realize how, even though we call ourselves backwards, we are really advanced in a lot of ways. And I'm talking starting with just having rights, having opportunities. And as much as we complain, when you visit a place like Brazil, you will understand what it means to be part of a first world nation and not having to deal with racism from like that's still being instilled from 100 years ago. That's alive and kicking. And this is the case in Brazil. And call me bougie, whatever. I don't care because I wear it proud. But there's times we went to a very nice restaurant in Brazil and they're looking at us all side-eyed, like, what are we doing here? I think partly because we're Caribbean, so we look Brazilian too. But, you know, the wait staff would be ecstatic because they're like, oh my God, Black people dining here. And I love that reaction, but it's sad. It's sad that when you go somewhere that people already size you up because that's par for the course in Brazil, right? Black people really don't have much rights. So even as a tourist and you're Black tourist, the same applies. Like we were in Zara in Salvador de Bahia and none of the salespeople approached us. None of them helped us. None of them asked. They just assumed we didn't have the money to even shop there. They just assumed we were browsing and looking. And we were offended. We were offended. So again, I'm just painting that picture and setting expectations. This is the mentality. This is the thinking that's embedded in the minds of people there. Not everybody, no, but I'm just giving you the Keep It 100 version. The next spiritual vacation, believe it or not, but hear me out, is Asia. Asia is deep, y'all. I can't tell you the amount of times that I've been. And I'm throwing this in because in the case of Thailand, there are plenty of men and women of color living abroad there. Aside from the military, there's a lot of expats there. And reason being, because it's cheap. It's dirt cheap. I mean, the exchange rate is 30-1. And trust me, you could live or vacation like 10-star. I've been to Thailand, I don't know, at least 4 times. And each time I got more woke than the last time. So in my book, they were the pioneers of this whole wellness retreat thing. Like everybody's doing this retreat thing. Well, that's been going on there for decades. So my point is this. If you're looking for wellness, if you're looking for spiritual, if you're looking for culture, bam. Number 2. Well, I'll admit here, I'm biased, but biased with a purpose because I love to talk about Trini Carnival. That's Trinidad Carnival. For any newcomer, there are 2 major themes to understand when you're talking about revealing the flesh. And that's exactly what carnival means, right? When you translate it, carnival is the time to sin until Ash Wednesday. And I guess in simpler terms, if you want to understand it a little faster, then yes, it compares with Mardi Gras. It's the same calendar. When I say compares, far different experience. Far. In fact, we call it the greatest show on earth because it is. Because you leave all your inhibitions at the door. And it's an absolute must-have if you want to let go. February is a time for saints and sinners in both Brazil and Trinidad. One could argue which country has the best carnival, because it really comes down to Brazil and Trinidad when you're talking about rhythms and local culture paying homage to African traditions practiced from eons ago. And if you can't make it to Trinidad this year, because it is an expense, you could also get a little taste or a little warm up, and you can try Caravana in Toronto, which is the first weekend in August. Then you have Miami Carnival, which is always Columbus Day weekend, and then New York's Labor Day Parade. And to really and thoroughly enjoy it, you have to play Mass. Mass is short for masquerader. And what it means is you just have to purchase a costume, get in a band, sign up early, like you're talking June, July, August, and make sure you buy your ticket early. Because unlike me, who's not going next week, and I'm mad, don't wait to buy that airline ticket. Make sure you get that early. And honestly, at the end of the day, I'm not lying. It's not a cheap trip. You're going to easily spend $3,000. So be prepared for that. So next we're going to talk about modern day curated Black adventures. If you haven't heard of Jeff and Kalisa, they're the New York couple who left the New York City 9-to-5 grind. And they pursued their passion for food and culture in Jamaica, and they opened this community-oriented luxury bed and breakfast. So now they've expanded beyond Jamaica, right? They've gone on to new destinations around the world, and they call it the Runaway Experience, which is a global travel pop-up. And their focus is more cultural discovery and unforgettable dining experiences through local communities abroad. And they focus with women and men of color. And lastly, you don't have to do any of the work because they will book your travel, provide the itineraries, and also act as the hosts. So the other phenomenon that's happening is these curated travel groups. And there's one niche for everybody. And the next niche I'm going to talk about is that whole boutique travel to Africa. And Global Jet Black provides small, boutique-y personalized trips that brings together dynamic types of individuals who want to explore like new local scenes. So they focus more on the itinerary and exploring, relaxation, and they even have a professional photographer that's going to capture your moments. So you don't have to take away your energy with focusing on capturing those moments because someone's doing it for you. Then we have Black Travel Movement. This is a Facebook group that boasts 20,000 members. And this group is different because they have members of all ages and all of them. Mostly, I would say 70% of that group are world-class travelers. So they have a genuine vested interest and decades of experience traveling, international worldwide travel, in fact. So you'll have a connection with a wide range of new and seasoned travelers in this group. And what I love about it is you can ask any question, like even if it's the slightest question about their experience, maybe it's a tip, advice, it's all there. And then lastly, we have Travel Noir. Travel Noir probably is the most technologically savvy of them all. You know, you'll find them a lot on social and doing good things on social. I would say they do everything what I've already talked about with the others. The only difference is it's more millennial centric. And I think most of their groups are not, their travel groups are like small to mid-range, but they incorporate the technology piece to make the visual real of the programs that they're offering. So I think that's a great hook to have in this day and age. If you're looking for other ideas, I'm all for Black spacations. And if there's anything in your local city, if you don't like to fly, it's a Black-owned spa. And it's a perfect spa and staycation combination. Or you could just travel to another city to experience another look and feel. And so when I was looking for a luxury resort and spa, believe it or not, at least the only one I found on U.S. soil was Sheila Johnson's Salamander Hotels and Resorts, which she is the first African-American woman to attain a net worth of at least $1 billion. This resort is in Middleburg, Virginia, just outside of the DMV. Let's move on to wine tasting because there's a lot of Black-owned wineries. And I think the most notable one that I'm going to highlight here are Brown Estate Vineyards. And you could visit them at www.brownestate.com, which is Napa Valley's first Black-owned estate winery. And that was established in 1996. They are organically farmed, and their story is their parents purchased an abandoned ranch in the eastern hills of Napa Valley. They rehabilitated it. It was a crumbling homestead, and they planted grapes, for which a decade they farmed and sold to local winemakers. And that is their story. But for theirs, if you just even Google Black-owned wineries, you'll come up with many in California. There used to be some in South Africa. You know, when I think of international, there's some in Canada, which I thought was kind of interesting. I've never visited either of these, but it's definitely on my list whenever I'm in California. And next we have sports vacations. You know, when we talk about winter skiing, I think of the Black Ski Summit. It was such a big deal to see that on Ebony or Jet magazine back in the day. And they boast a membership now. They started, I would say, 1973. And they're up to 3,000 members now, which I thought was kind of impressive. Not to say winter's our favorite time of the year, but at least for these folks, they are truly winter sports enthusiasts. And then you have the MLK ski weekend, and that's been around for a good 22 years. And, you know, most people think of skiing as kind of a stooshy, elitist thingy, but they have a following too. And they have annual trips to Detroit, Buffalo, Toronto, where they head to the hills and do their thing. And then we have tennis. So, you know, again, this is a selfish motive here, but the Williams sisters have given us a new angle of tennis and what it means to be a champion, a reigning champion. And I myself play tennis, but truly the tradition dates back to 1916 when the ATA was born. And these are representatives from more than a dozen black tennis clubs that met back in the day in Washington, D.C. And the American Tennis Association, it is a primary governing body for African American tennis in the U.S. So you're always going to find a camp, a tournament, or a coach, which I think is really cool that we could reach out to our own in the event that we want to pursue this sport, which has always been a white-dominated sport. Then lastly, we have Mother Africa. Africa is one of the last two continents for me in the world that I need to visit. You know, I've been I've been everywhere. And I've kind of saved the best for last, and I'm really excited because my first stop will be in Marrakesh in April and then Cape Town in December. So I'm really anxious to see what that's going to be like. And I'm trying to branch off to Tanzania if I have enough time, but I'm really looking to report back to you guys on that one. But if you're listening to this now, you may or may not be too late, but it's certainly no excuse because there's always next year. Thanks for tuning in to the Keep It 100 Girl Show. If you have all the feels to your keeping it 100 in your life, then tune in every week and don't miss a beat when we talk about relationships, love, sex, dating, women's health, career, travel. You could review this show on iTunes, and even better, don't forget to subscribe because you'll never, ever, ever miss me or this episode or future episodes. I'm on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, Auto Radio, and Google Play Music. And you can get social with me using the handle @NinaBabel. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, but join my Keep It 100 Nation and even the Keep It 100 Girl Facebook page. Catch me on Facebook Live February 17th, where I'm going to be in the kitchen reviewing my recipe plans and sharing a little tidbit of my personal struggle or past struggle with fibroids. And I haven't had surgery, and that's the whole point of it. I'm trying to tell women, you don't have to have surgery. You have to change your lifestyle, and that's making it an anti-estrogen lifestyle. To learn that and more, connect with me on social and you will be connected. Remember, I keep it 100, I keep it real. Smooches!